to the Efficacious gentleman. In the kitchen again today, we're making a product, so I apologise if it's a little bit echoey, and I also apologise if there's any noise from the neighbours doing some work in their garden. We're going to be making a deodorant today. It's, again, I always say this, it's a very simple process. It's really not complicated at all. You might have to look to get some of the ingredients, but the actual process itself is very, very simple. Now this particular deodorant is very effective. I use it myself. I've been using it for a while now, and I wanted to before I made the video because I wanted to actually be able to give you a little bit of information about how the product itself works when it's being used. Yeah, a lot of people did a lot of good work and a lot of playing around with different ideas, and from that I've also been able to put together this recipe that I'm using now. So a big shout out to the people at Soapmaking Forum who did a lot of the groundwork. That means that we can just get on and make the recipe. So let's get straight into what ingredients we have and getting them measured out. Okay, so this is a recipe with 5 ingredients, and that's including the fragrance if you go for it. Some of them are fairly common. So Babassu oil, you can generally get that quite easily. Polysorbate 80, that's also not hard to get your hands on. Cetyl alcohol, that's also pretty common. What might be a little bit hard to get hold of is some magnesium hydroxide. Now this is very important. This is the main active ingredient. Babassu oil is also very good to use as a deodorant. You can use it by itself. The magnesium hydroxide just gives it that little bit of extra. What I'm going to do now is put all of these ingredients. I'll put the recipe in the link down below. I'm making 300 grams. That'll give me 3 pots. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be measuring out today. You need to measure out into something that you can heat it up in. You're going to then heat it up until it's melted, and then put in the fragrance and put it into our pots. So let's get cracking.
It's a funny bear, carrots on a tear. Well, I do declare it is classy. Gabby brought the dance and it's got us all a-going. Since she came, no other 12 has had any showing. It's a music treat for your dance.
We don't have to be too exact when we're measuring out these sorts of things. Now, the important ingredient.
Just a real Parisian fly. Prance along as though you were upon the boulevard.
Okay, a little bit over, but again, that's not going to make a huge difference. Okay, and even with measuring carefully, I still managed to go over.
Or let your feelings hide.
Okay, so that's the 4 ingredients apart from the fragrance in there now. The fragrance I want to put in later after it's been heated through. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get this heating slowly and then talk a little bit about what the ingredients are in there for. Okay, well, just as that's slowly warming through, the reason why I slowly warm it through is because I don't want anything to happen to the oil. I don't want it to overcook or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, really in this recipe, the magnesium hydroxide is it's the star of the show. That's the thing that's really going to prevent the bacteria from breeding, and that's what causes the smell. When you sweat, bacteria breeds, it starts to eat the sweat, and it starts to give off methane and other gases, and that's what causes the smell. By killing the bacteria, or preventing them from breeding, we can prevent the smell. And that's what magnesium hydroxide does. It really helps to prevent that bacterial growth. Of course, it's a powder, so we need a way of getting that powder onto us in a good way. And so you could use really any kind of oil. But there are a couple of things to think about. So coconut oil is one that's very common to use, and coconut and Babassu can be very similar in a lot of things that we do, soaping for example. Babassu is more expensive, but coconut oil is far more likely to stain your clothes. I have used deodorants with coconut oil before, I've made them myself, and the coconut oil can tend to stick to your clothes. It can actually end up ruining clothes. I generally use fairly thick cotton polo shirts, so they can take a hotter wash, but if you've got something delicate and you've got some coconut oil on there, you might struggle to get it out. So you have to think about what oil you use. Babassu also has the added benefit of itself helping to prevent the bacterial growth. So Babassu is more expensive. It's not always as easy to find. Coconut oil you can find, in the supermarket. Babassu you have to look a bit further for, but it is worth it for what we're doing now. I put in some cetyl alcohol. That's just to help thicken it up. This summer we've generally been around about 30 degrees most days. It's been fairly hotter some days, a little bit colder on others. And the deo has been fairly liquid throughout that time. We're coming into winter now, so I'm not changing the recipe. I'm keeping the recipe as it is, because in winter time it's going to be a lot colder, and yeah, when the house is generally about 22 degrees in winter, the bathroom a little bit colder sometimes, but then it's pretty solid, but not so solid that you can't use it. It's still something that you can put onto your fingers and apply under your arms. The Polysorbate 80, this is an emulsifier. This is something I would use in a lotion or a face cream to help oil and water mix. Basically, when you then put your clothes into the wash, it helps the oil and the water to bind together and wash the clothes more effectively. The water is not just going to be repulsed by the oil. That's why the Polysorbate 80 is in there. And yeah, as I said, I'm using lavender as the scent. Smells nice, but also lavender can help to reduce the bacterial growth, and that's what we're trying to do. So those are the ingredients and those are what they do. As I said, recipe will be down below. I'll do it for a 100-gram batch, which means it's also then basically in percentages if you want to scale it up or scale it down for any size pot that you want to use. So now we're at the stage where I want to add in my fragrance. I do use a tiny amount of fragrance, as you'll see from the recipe. So this is cooled down. That's cooled down enough that I'm happy to have the fragrance in now. This is a small enough bottle that it's got a dropper on there. Okay, there we are. So those of you who are looking at the recipe will see that's just slightly over, just a snipsy bit, but that's alright. So what I'm using to put them in are just these small cosmetic pots. They come with a good lid with a plastic divider. Now these have been cleaned. Okay, so I'm going to measure out 100 grams into each pot.
Dance it here and dance it there and keep on dancing hard. Start into the side, do the Paris ride, swing up.
Spot on. I'm not going to film the other ones just in case. Not quite as good this time. And of course, this one is a little bit under because of the residue left in the pot. But there we are. 3 pots, 2 just a touch over 100 grams and 1 just a touch under. Now when it came to preparing the pots for this deodorant, I made sure they were thoroughly washed. These are ones that haven't been used for anything before, so I didn't have to wash anything out of there. I didn't use a preservative, and you're free to do so. I do think preservatives have their place in anything where I'm putting water in, so a lotion or a cream, where I'm adding water in on purpose. I would certainly use a preservative. In anything, so for example, an emulsifying sugar scrub, where people are going to be putting wet hands into it, I would put a preservative in because I'm introducing water into them. When you're putting this deodorant on, you would probably have dry hands, I would imagine. So the chances of water getting in there are very, very slim. So the chances of anything then being able to grow in there. The ingredients themselves aren't preservatives in that sense, but of course they are there to help prevent this bacteria anyway. So that's why this recipe doesn't have a preservative. If you want to, you can. I didn't use it not because preservatives are bad, but because I'm not putting water into this recipe. So there doesn't necessarily need to be a preservative in there. Well, that's it. I'm going to let those pots cool down now and let them firm up. You could put the lids on, but then of course you'd start to get some condensation, and as I said, we wanted to try and avoid too much moisture in there. So I'm just going to let them cool down by themselves. Then I'll put the lids on. Yeah, a nice easy presents for people, a wonderful product for yourself. Depending on where you live, where we are, a pot of 50 grams of a similar kind of product sells for 10 to 15 euros per pot. These pots of 100 grams, they're costing me, apart from my time and the pot itself, a few euros per pot. So if this is the kind of thing that you're into anyway, it's very easy to make. And the initial cost of some of the ingredients might seem quite high, but they're very long life ingredients anyway. The Babassu oil, the magnesium hydroxide are the two main ones, and they'll be stable for a very long time indeed. So yeah, if you make this, let me know how it goes in the comments below. If you've used a similar product, let me know what you think. If you've had a bad experience with coconut and zinc oxide, those are some of the main ones that people use, let me know. I've been there. I've got some ruined polo shirts myself. Like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this video and you want to see more of my content. For those of you looking for bushcraft videos, I really hope this autumn that I'm going to be back out in the woods. And when I am in the woods, I'll explain to you why it's been a bit of a quiet summer from me. But I hope you enjoyed that, and take care, and until next time, bye bye.